Mail-in ballots. He was fine with it.
Well, it was because his Republican strategists were panicking because they realized that they were going to lose without getting those mail-in ballots now. And I would imagine this time around, those same Republican strategists are also panicking because if he goes out there and starts to spread the word that mail-in ballots aren't going to work, this is going to be a real problem in the midterms.
Tonight's story is wild. CNN brought in Sam Seder from the Majority Report to join Abby Phillip, and what unfolded turned into a 2-on-2 showdown. On one side, you had Abby and Sam holding the line. On the other, a pair of die-hard MAGA loyalists trying to defend Donald Trump's latest stunt, his bizarre claim that he could use an executive order to wipe out mail-in voting nationwide. Think about that for a second. An American president openly floating the idea of banning millions of people from casting their vote by mail, a method safely used by seniors, military families overseas, and people with disabilities. That's not leadership, that's desperation. And watching Sam and Abby push back against the nonsense in real time was something to see. Now, before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because trust me, what we're about to break down is bigger than just mail-in ballots. It's about whether democracy itself can survive another round of Trump's power plays. So let's roll the clips, unpack exactly what was said, and expose how the MAGA defenders keep twisting themselves into knots to protect their dear leader.
Donald Trump plays a throwback, declaring that he'll lead a movement to eliminate mail-in ballots.
Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place.
Mail-in ballots are not corrupt. Fraud rates in federal elections are tiny, and dozens of countries use mail-in voting, despite what Trump claims. So why is the president suddenly so amped up about this again? Well, apparently someone got in his ear. Someone with a history of fair elections and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to election integrity.
Vladimir Putin, smart guy, said you can't have an honest election with mail-in voting. And he said there's not a country in the world that uses it now.
Yes, Mr. President, he would know because you'll recall that Vladimir Putin changed Russia's constitution to remain in power. Many of his opponents are either dead or in prison or in exile. Russia is notorious for vote tampering, restrictions on monitors, and rampant voter intimidation. And yes, Russia has interfered with America's elections. But perhaps the most important point is that it's unclear what the administration could actually do to end mail-in voting, since that power belongs to the states. Just ask the Constitution. Joining us in our fifth seat at the table is Sam Seder, host of the Majority Report. I don't know if President Trump forgot that he did this, but let me just play it. This is September 2024, about a year ago, when he said this to his own supporters.
You know that absentee ballots are about to go out in North Carolina? In other words, it's time to start thinking about let's vote. So important. This will be the most important election in the history of our country. So whether it's mail-in ballots, early voting, voting on the day, you got to get out and vote. We want to save our country. We're the only one going to save it. That other group of people, they're going to destroy our country. We can't let that happen. Go out and vote for Trump.
Mail-in ballots. He was fine with it.
Well, it was because his Republican strategists were panicking because they realized that they were going to lose without getting those mail-in ballots now. And I would imagine this time around, those same Republican strategists are also panicking because if he goes out there and starts to spread the word that mail-in ballots aren't going to work, this is going to be a real problem in the midterms for those Republicans, plus the fact that he has no authority to do this. I mean, he tried to pass he wrote up an executive order a couple of months ago to deal with the voting, and he got shot down by 2 different federal judges. So there's really there's no path for him here, and it's sort of fascinating that all it takes is one suggestion from Putin. I mean, what were they doing talking about 2020 during these meetings? Like he's like a cat. It's like no object permanence here.
Where were the staff to remind the president that it's actually not true what he claimed, which is that the federal government let me just read it actually. Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. That is not at all what the Constitution says.
Sam Seder nailed it. Let's pause here because his point exposes something much deeper. Over and over again, Donald Trump reveals himself not as a leader who values democracy, but as someone who openly admires strongmen and dictators. He doesn't align himself with America's actual allies, not Canada, not the European democracies that stand with us on shared values of freedom and fairness. Instead, his admiration flows toward authoritarians who crush dissent, silence opposition, and rewrite the rules to cling to power. And here's the shocking part. Trump isn't even hiding it. He's flat out saying America's elections should look more like Vladimir Putin's. Think about how dangerous that is. Putin oversees a country where opposition leaders vanish, journalists are jailed or worse, and elections are nothing more than staged theater. And yet Trump is signaling that's the model we should follow. This isn't just bad policy. It's a glimpse into his worldview. A president of the United States saying essentially, let's take notes from a dictator who has never allowed a free and fair election. That's not just reckless. It's insane. It's insulting to every American who has fought to preserve democracy, and it shows exactly why Trump can't be trusted with power.
Agree with you. States have a huge role to play when it comes to elections. We also know that in 2020, as a result of the COVID pandemic, a lot of states went very aggressively in the direction of mail-in ballots.
Which they are entitled to do because they are in charge of the time, manner of the elections. They are in charge of that.
Even the U.S. Election Assistance Commission has studied mail-in ballots and said that there are a certain percentage, I believe like 500,000, that probably aren't ultimately delivered to their final destination. So I'd put this question to all of you. If you won the New York lottery, would you mail in your $1 million winning lotto ticket, or would you want to take it physically to the office to cash it in? I think if anybody wants to ensure that their vote is counted, the best way to do it. Well, then what about
did you think about that all day? That was a terrible analogy.
What about the Democrat Attorney General of New Jersey, who just an hour from here in Paterson, New Jersey, there was corruption and they're investigating voter fraud because there was a politician who used mail-in ballots to try to steal the election.
So voting is a like I like the lottery. Let's talk about why that analogy was just.
And here's the part that's almost comical if it weren't so dangerous. The MAGA faithful don't actually care about principles or consistency or truth. If Donald Trump walked out tomorrow and declared that mail-in voting was the best invention in American history, his supporters would immediately flip and start praising it as patriotic. We know this because he's done it before. Praising mail-in ballots when he thought they would help him, then condemning them the moment he decided they were a threat. That's the entire problem. MAGA doesn't operate on facts. It operates on blind loyalty. Whatever the dear leader says in that moment becomes gospel, no matter how contradictory it is to what he said last week. There are no scruples, no moral compass, no grounding in reality. It's just parroting, echoing, and defending Trump at all costs. At the end of the day, it's not about democracy for them. It's not about fairness. It's not even about policy. It's about winning. And if mail-in ballots help Republicans, then suddenly mail-in ballots are fine. But if Trump decides they're bad, then they're corrupt. It's a political cult on display, and this segment exposed that hypocrisy for everyone to see.
So like voting is a right and playing the lottery is a privilege, right? Those are two vastly different things. And the right means that you should make it free and fair. Everyone should have access to it. We should actually be trying to make voting as easy as possible so that we're more inclusive. Things like Oregon is what we should be talking about, where they have Tobias Reed and automatic voter registration. That's where we should be going with this, not necessarily trying to crack down on it. Yes, we want to eliminate voter fraud, but if we want to go back to 2020, and the great irony in this, and I haven't heard neither one of you all have said a bad thing about Vladimir Putin tonight. Neither one of you all. And Vladimir Putin is someone who literally has killed his enemies, has killed his political opponents, has pushed them off roofs and poisoned them and all of these things. And he is the one who said that this is something you should deal with. And he went on Sean Hannity and quoted it.
I did say, by the way, that I believe the first comment I made was that he was a tyrant and shouldn't be trusted.
You're drifting from.
You know what?
You're drifting from
I
Vladimir
give you
Putin.
credit. I was
this
really
talking
talking
about Vladimir Putin. This is about voter fraud.
Say something bad about Vladimir Putin.
That is about voter fraud. But let's hear
not just
one
Paterson.
example.
I'm going to give you 5. In Paterson, New Jersey is the one.
Just 5?
No, more.
That's it?
I found a bunch.
many votes did we
Sioux
have?
City, Iowa, North
Okay.
Carolina 9, 2018, Appalachia, Virginia 2006, Miami mayor was
Okay.
overturned in 97, Bridgeport, Connecticut was just overturned.
Okay.
Not every ballot.
So Joe, tell
Let me
me
finish that.
where
Not every
the,
ballot.
Tell me the degree to which mail-in voting
I'm telling you.
fraud was enough to change the result of a presidential election. Where is that?
I can't pronounce the name. In Michigan,
Of a
in Miami,
presidential election?
But not every election is about the presidential race. We
Okay.
also elect people at the state, federal, and local
yeah,
level.
but
the point I'm trying to make is,
Trump
Abby,
is making this statement
let me
based
finish the
on
point.
his
Joe Biden win?
own experience.
let me finish the point. Not every ballot mailed in is fraud. But it's almost always the case where you have fraudulent ballots. It's done not just by mail ballots, but paper ballots, absentee ballots. So if the president wants to secure ballot integrity in a better way, I am 100% for this. Now, you all, last segment, were so worried about the MAGA base and how they would react to troops on the ground.
Can I
gonna
just
react.
ask a
MAGA base
clarifying
is
question
thrilled
of
about
you,
this.
Joe? You said you're all for what the president wants to do, but he is saying he wants to federally, he wants the president by decree to ban mail-in voting in this entire country. Are you for that?
No idea how I was going to do that.
Okay, are you for that? Because you just said that you're for what
I'm
he
willing
wants
to
to
wait
do.
for the executive order and see if
You
it's
just said
valid.
you're for what he wants to do.
If he figures out a way to meet the requirements of the court that struck it down previously, if he figures out a way to do it, I'm for it.
He can't, though.
If he can't, then he can't. But it's a thing that I would hope, and I've actually supported the New York State legislature
Let me
in
ask
doing
you.
this.
Let me ask
I
you.
would write a check
Let me
to
ask you a
South
question.
Carolina legislature
Let me ask you a
if they were
question. Are you in
supporting that.
favor? Are you in favor of when you turn 18, you're automatically registered to
Yeah,
vote?
but you're acting like
Are you
mail-in.
in favor
But
of
you're
that,
acting
Joe?
like
Are you in
mail-in.
favor
Hold
of
on. You're
that?
acting like mail-in ballots are something universal.
Barry Sears made a powerful point, and it's one that cuts to the heart of this entire debate. In a democracy, we should be working to make voting easier, not harder. That's the baseline. That's the standard. But Republicans and MAGA activists, they take the opposite approach. They know that when more people vote, Democrats are more likely to win. So instead of competing fairly, they push to restrict access, to put up barriers, to make the process as complicated and intimidating as possible. And then you've got Joe Belly, who perfectly embodies the MAGA playbook. These are the same people who love to brand themselves as the facts over feelings crowd, the ones who tell everyone else to toughen up or deal with it. Yet, when the cameras are rolling, what do they rely on? Pure emotion, pure feelings, no evidence, no data, just vibes and outrage. Abby Phillip tried to inject some reality into the conversation. She pressed Joe with the truth, that there's no widespread evidence of voter fraud in America. At most, you'll find a handful of cases here and there, and more often than not, it's actually Republicans caught bending the rules. The rest are usually honest mistakes. Someone mailing a ballot to the wrong district, or an elderly voter unsure if their form was processed correctly. That's not corruption, that's human error. And the numbers don't lie. Study after study, analyzing literally billions of ballots, shows fraud rates so tiny they're barely measurable, fractions of a fraction of a percent. But MAGA refuses to accept that reality. Instead, they build their entire narrative around feelings, around suspicions, around whatever Trump says in the moment. And when politics is driven by feelings instead of facts, democracy suffers.
Trump was wrong. It wasn't one country. You were wrong too. It's not dozens. It's 12. 12 countries on planet Earth have
No, that's
12
actually
have,
not. No,
12 have universal.
12 in Europe.
22 have other ways of getting it not universal. So that's 34. That's 15% of the countries on Earth.
Joe, we also don't have universal mail-in ballots. We don't have that. So the idea that, listen, it's not 12, okay, but there are over 30 countries in the world that have mail-in and ballot voting, A. And B, to your point, Sam, Donald Trump is messing with something that his voters use, okay? 24% of Republicans used mail-in ballots in the 2024 election. That is a little bit down from 2020 when there was a pandemic, but it just goes to show that you then take those voters, some of them are in the villages in Florida, they're in Utah where they automatically send mail-in ballots to every registered voter.
Right.
Abby Phillip raised another point that really exposes the absurdity here. Many Republican voters, the very base Trump depends on, are seniors. For a lot of them, getting out of the house, standing in long lines, or navigating crowded polling stations is not easy. On top of that, plenty of voters have disabilities that make in-person voting a challenge. And let's not forget about military families. Thousands of service members are stationed overseas, and the only way their voices can be heard back home is through mail-in ballots. So when Trump launches into this crusade against mail-in voting, he isn't just attacking Democrats. He's directly undermining his own supporters. Yet MAGA followers swallow it anyway because he says it with conviction. That's the frightening part. Trump can take something that isn't even a real problem, inflate it with lies, and suddenly it becomes gospel to his base. What was never an issue now feels like a crisis that must be fixed. But here's the truth. Nothing is being fixed. Trump and MAGA don't solve problems. They create them. They take systems that already function, systems designed to expand access to the ballot and strengthen democracy, and they work overtime to break them. Whether it's mail-in ballots, state-level election rules, or even trust in institutions, their strategy is always the same. Sow chaos, stir outrage, and then point to the mess they created as justification for grabbing even more power.
The real story here, it seems to me, because you've got just a CNN poll out a month ago showed Democrats 75% more enthusiastic than Republicans at 50%. So if you're talking about getting to the election poll sites, the side that has more enthusiasm is a lot more likely to get there in the first place. This is Donald Trump worried about the midterm elections and trying to set up reasons why the Republicans are going to lose. I mean, this is a two-pronged thing. We're seeing it in terms of the redistricting, and then the other part is already start to build in the excuses. I mean, that's what's going on here, because he knows he's not going to get this past the federal judge.
There is a reason that the framers of the Constitution put this in the state's hands, right? And not so long ago, this is what the Republican Party platform in 2016 said. Federalism is a cornerstone of our constitutional system. Every violation of state sovereignty by federal officials is not merely a transgression of one unit of government against another. It is an assault on the liberties of individual Americans. Now, here we are in 2025, and Donald Trump is saying the states are just vessels to do what I want them to do.
The states are a laboratory of democracy. And
okay, that's not what he's saying. He's saying
I'll tell you what
the
I'm
states.
saying.
I'm asking you about what he is saying. He is saying the states are agents for what I want.
I don't know if that's the correct interpretation.
It's either right or
Abby,
wrong.
not.
Is it right or is it wrong?
And this right here sums up the Trump era in one sentence. Everything becomes whatever Donald Trump wants it to be. Republicans scream about states' rights whenever it benefits them, but the moment a state takes action they don't like, suddenly the federal government must step in and override it. It's hypocrisy on full display. Trump doesn't actually believe in principles like federalism or states' rights. He believes in Trump's rights. Whatever serves his personal interest in that moment becomes the new standard. Sam Seder hit the nail on the head. Republicans know they're in serious trouble. And Trump's obsession with mail-in ballots isn't about integrity, it's about setting up excuses in advance. If they lose the midterms, he'll claim it was rigged. If they find a way to restrict voting access, they'll try to tilt the playing field in their favor. That's why we're seeing the same playbook over and over again. Gerrymandering districts, attacking mail-in voting, pushing voter suppression tactics. They know that in a fair fight, where every eligible American has equal access to the ballot, Democrats win more often than not. So the question isn't whether voter fraud is real. The question is whether we allow one man's ego and one movement's fear of losing power to dismantle the basic right to vote. Abby Phillip and Sam Seder made it clear, democracy works best when voting is accessible, inclusive, and protected. MAGA, on the other hand, is busy inventing excuses and conspiracies because deep down they know the truth. When more people participate, their grip on power weakens. And that's where we'll leave it. Until next time, this has been The Narrative Watch. Thanks for tuning in.